Today on the Daily Scoop podcast from the Scoop News Group, Customs and Border Protection is exploring use of Elon Musk's Starlink, and DOD leadership orders components to scrub any DEI content across their websites and social media platforms. It's Friday, February 28th, 2025. Welcome to the Daily Scoop podcast, where you'll hear the latest news and trends facing government leaders. I'm the host of the Daily Scoop podcast, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for joining me. Let's dive into the day's top headlines. U.S. Customs and Border Protection has issued internal paperwork to authorize an evaluation of Starlink, the satellite internet service provided by Elon Musk's SpaceX, according to documents identified by FedScoop and a spokesperson for the agency. CBP has created a privacy threshold analysis, which is an internal document used to analyze potential privacy risks associated with the new technology and whether a privacy impact assessment is necessary for Starlink Internet, a step from agency officials that indicates that the SpaceX service is under serious consideration. It also continues a trend of federal agencies expressing interest in working with one of Musk's companies, as the richest man in the world further embeds himself within the Trump administration and leads efforts to cut federal programs and shrink the federal workforce. An agency spokesperson confirmed the existence of the privacy threshold analysis for Starlink, which expires at the end of April. Full details of the evaluation aren't public, but two other privacy threshold analyses for different projects reveal that the agency has expressed interest in deploying the technology through its automated surveillance tower program, which involves using towers with sensors and tracking technology to monitor the U.S. border. In other news, newly installed Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell on Thursday issued a memo calling for all Defense Department components to scrub any diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, content from their websites and social media platforms. By March 5th, next Wednesday, DOD components must take down all news and feature articles, photos, and videos that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion from the web, according to the directive, calling the effort a digital content refresh. That media must be archived and retained following Pentagon records management policy, states the memo from Parnell, who is the assistant to the Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs. The defense media activity has been tasked with playing a lead in the matter, given its role hosting a vast swath of the DoD's web content. It, quote, will support systematic content removal from the Defense Visual Information Distribution Service, or DVIDS, the department's repository of content and media like photos and videos, among other things, and the American Forces Public Information Management System, the legacy platform upon which DMA hosts roughly 1,000 websites for DoD entities. But ultimately, the memo states, quote, components are responsible for archiving and removing any DEI content on AFPIMS and content that has not been systematically identified on DVIDs. Additionally, those components that don't host websites on AFPIMS are solely responsible for the removal of any DEI content. If any DEI content remains on those websites after the March 5th deadline, the defense media activity will remove it, though components can request extensions. For more news at the intersection of the federal government and technology, make sure to visit fedscoop.com. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Daily Scoop podcast, available on all podcast platforms. If you've already rated the podcast on your platform of choice, thanks so much. High ratings and good reviews of the show help more people to find it. The Daily Scoop podcast is a production of the Scoop News Group in Washington, D.C. Adam Butler and Carlin Fisher help put the show together, and the entire Scoop News Group team contributes. We'll be back next week with more top headlines. Until then, I'm your host, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for listening.